There was a time when New York City felt like the center of the universe. The night stretched longer, the music hit harder, and anything could happen between sunset and sunrise. The city pulsed with danger, glamour, and freedom, all at the same time. Hidden behind unmarked doors and glowing neon signs, these places shaped reputations, launched careers, and blurred every line. These are the clubs that built New York's after-dark legend. It opened in 1923 on 142nd Street in Harlem. 700 seats, a stage that launched legends and a cruel rule of the era. Black performers only, white audiences only. Mobster Owney Madden ran it during Prohibition, selling illegal beer to Manhattan's elite while the greatest musicians in America performed. Duke Ellington was house band leader for 3 years, starting in 1927. Cab Calloway took over in 1931 with his famous call, "High day, high day, high day, ho." Billie Holiday sang there. Lena Horne danced there. Louis Armstrong made that stage shake. Every week, national radio broadcasts brought Harlem into living rooms across America. The Cotton Club was where the Harlem Renaissance found its heartbeat. It closed in 1940, but what happened on that stage echoed for the next 100 years. 315 Bowery. Hilly Kristal opened it on December 10, 1973. The name stood for country, bluegrass, and blues. Instead, it became the birthplace of punk rock. The walls were covered in graffiti, the bathroom was the most disgusting in Manhattan, and the sound system barely worked. None of it mattered. On August 16, 1974, the Ramones played their first show there. 4 guys from Queens blasting through 2-minute songs. Blondie played there. Talking Heads played there. Patti Smith played there. Television played there. Every band that wanted to matter stood on that tiny stage. The final show was October 15, 2006. Patti Smith closed it out. Today, the corner is named Joey Ramone Place. The building is a clothing store, but the ghosts are still screaming. April 26, 1977. Steve Rubell and Ian Schrager opened the doors at 254 West 54th Street and changed nightlife forever. The dance floor held 1,000 people. The lighting system cost $300,000. Every night, thousands lined up outside while Rubell pointed at faces in the crowd. You, not you. Bianca Jagger rode a white horse across the dance floor on her birthday. Andy Warhol held court in the basement. Liza Minnelli danced until dawn. Michael Jackson, Cher, Mick Jagger, Truman Capote, Diana Ross. At its peak, the club made $7 million a year in cash hidden in ceiling tiles. In 1979, Rubell and Schrager were arrested for tax evasion. The club closed in February 1980. For 33 months, Studio 54 was the center of the universe. Nothing has ever come close. Have you ever seen photos from inside Studio 54? Tell me in the comments which one shocked you the most. 84 King Street. A former parking depot in Soho. No alcohol, no VIP section, no dress code, just the dance floor and the most incredible sound system ever built. DJ Larry Levan did not just play records, he took crowds on 10-hour journeys that felt like religious experiences. The doors opened at midnight. The party ended at 11 the next morning. The bass was so deep you felt it in your bones. Levan would play a track 3 times in a row if the moment demanded it. He would drop the sound to nothing and let the crowd sing before bringing it back like thunder. Paradise Garage was predominantly black and Latino, predominantly gay, at a time when those communities had few places to call their own. When it closed in 1987, the crowd wept. Modern house music exists because of what happened in that room. 77 White Street, Halloween night, 1978. While Uptown was doing cocaine at Studio 54, downtown artists created the Anti-Studio at the Mud Club. No velvet ropes based on fame. No dress code based on wealth. The only currency was creativity. Jean-Michel Basquiat showed up covered in paint. Keith Haring curated art shows on the 4th floor. David Bowie came to escape. Madonna came to be discovered. The DJs mixed punk with funk with sounds that had no name yet. Allen Ginsberg read poetry. Bands played so loud the neighbors threatened to riot. The Mud Club lasted only 5 years. It closed in 1983. But those 5 years helped birth an entire generation of New York art. 30 West, 21st Street. 4 floors of possibility. Ground floor was dancing, 2nd floor was live bands, 3rd floor was avant-garde films, 4th floor was a rooftop restaurant. You could spend an entire night moving between worlds without ever leaving the building. The elevator operator was a teenager from Queens who would later become LL Cool J. The busboys included Keith Haring and the Beastie Boys. On December 16, 1982, a 24-year-old nobody named Madonna performed her first solo show. She played a song called Everybody. Within a year, she was the biggest star on the planet. New Order played their first American show there. The Smiths introduced themselves to New York there. Run DMC proved hip-hop could fill a downtown room. Danceteria closed in 1986, but everyone who passed through those doors carried a piece of it forever. Peter Gatien took a Gothic church built in 1845 and spent $5 million turning it into a nightclub. The stained glass windows stayed. The pews became VIP seating. The altar became a DJ booth. H.R. Giger, the artist who designed the creature in Alien, built the VIP room. Andy Warhol hosted opening night. The Limelight became headquarters of the Club Kids. Michael Olig led them, organizing parties called Disco 2000 and Blood Feast. Costumes that took hours to create. Platform shoes reaching the ceiling. Makeup designed to shock and disturb. In 1996, Olig murdered a drug dealer named Angel Melendez. The crime exposed the darkness underneath. The club closed. An era collapsed. The building is now a gym. The ghosts remain. What would you have worn to the Limelight? Tell me your wildest ideas. 220 12th Avenue. A former railroad freight terminal with 80,000 square feet of space, Peter Gatien created Hip Hop Sundays in 1992, curated by Funkmaster Flex. What happened on those Sunday nights changed music history. Nas premiered tracks before Illmatic dropped. DMX performed before anyone knew his name. Jay-Z tested new verses on crowds that would tell him immediately if they were fire or garbage. Wu-Tang Clan proved they were not a gimmick. Vibe magazine called it hip-hop's most sacred ground. The actual railroad tracks still ran through the building. 2,000 people packed in every Sunday. It closed in 2001, but the beats that bounced off those walls are still echoing in every hip-hop club tonight. 157 Hudson Street. Area was not a nightclub. It was an art installation that happened to have a dance floor. Every 6 weeks, the entire space transformed around a new theme. Natural history meant taxidermy on the walls. Confinement turned it into a prison. You never knew what you were walking into. Jean-Michel Basquiat designed installations. Keith Haring painted the walls. Grace Jones performed suspended from the ceiling. The bathroom was a performance art destination. You might walk in to wash your hands and find yourself in the middle of a piece. Area lasted only 3 years, from 1983 to 1987. It proved a nightclub could be a gallery, a theater, and a social experiment all at once. When Paradise Garage closed, the faithful needed somewhere to go. Junior Vasquez gave them Sound Factory at 530 West 27th Street. The door was notoriously difficult. The sound system was punishing. The energy was religious. Madonna was a regular, showing up at 3 in the morning and dancing until sunrise. Vasquez became her unofficial house producer. But Sound Factory was not about celebrities. It was about gay men who had survived the worst years of the AIDS crisis, finding community on the dance floor. Vasquez played marathon sets, 8 hours, 10 hours. taking crowds through every emotion before releasing them into daylight. Sound Factory closed in 1995. What remains is proof that a club can be more than entertainment. It can be salvation. 1 East 14th Street. A former Academy of Music turned into one of the most influential clubs of the 1980s and early 90s. The Palladium was massive, theatrical, and unapologetically ambitious. Keith Haring painted a 40-foot mural inside. Jean-Michel Basquiat left his mark on the walls. This was nightlife designed like a cathedral. The crowd was a collision of worlds. Club kids in towering platforms, art students, celebrities, drag performers, hip-hop heads. DJs spun everything from house to freestyle to early hip-hop, sometimes in the same night. Grandmaster Flash played there. Run DMC did shows there. It was chaos, but curated chaos. The Palladium closed in 1997. The building is now a university dormitory. But for nearly 2 decades, it was proof that New York nightlife could be huge, artistic, and dangerous all at once. 125 East 11th Street, opened in 1886. By the time the 1960s rolled around, Webster Hall had already lived several lifetimes: ballroom dances, political rallies, punk shows, disco nights. It never belonged to one scene. It belonged to whoever showed up. In the 70s and 80s, Webster Hall became a proving ground. The Grateful Dead played early shows there. The Clash shook the walls. Madonna performed there repeatedly before superstardom locked her out of small rooms forever. On any given night, you could find punk kids downstairs and disco dancers upstairs. Webster Hall survived when others did not. Fires, bankruptcies, cultural shifts. It remains one of the few places where every era of New York nightlife overlaps, stacked on top of each other like sediment. 247th West 52nd Street. In the 1970s, the Latin Quarter was where disco met danger. It was glamorous, sweaty, and unpredictable. Celebrities danced inches away from street kids. The music never stopped long enough to catch your breath. Barry White performed there. Bette Midler sang there. Tina Turner electrified the room. Studio 54 got the headlines, but the Latin Quarter had the grit. The dance floor was packed tight, the air thick with smoke, perfume, and ambition. It closed in the early 1980s as the disco era collapsed. But for a brief window, the Latin Quarter represented the raw heart of New York nightlife. Not exclusive, not polite, just alive. New York's wildest years were not built by skyscrapers or headlines. They were built in dark rooms, on crowded dance floors, and in nights that never wanted to end. These clubs are gone, but the legend they created still owns the city after midnight. Which one would you have walked into first?